Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing YouTube channel. And if you've spent any time here at all, you will know that I am on a mission to support you with whatever it is you need to be more successful in your business. Now, as far as I understand it, the only way to be more successful is through your sales and marketing. So not only am I giving you everything I know about sales and marketing on this channel, I am also pulling in anyone who will agree to talk to me to share what it is that they know as well. So today's guest has run his business, The Business Booster, since 2003. He is the author of Selling for Dummies and More Money, Less Stress. That sounds cool. He was a single parent for 10 years and incredibly successful. He has a passion for energy and health, which is why he is so healthy and has so much energy. Today's guest is Ben Kench. Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hey, Martin. I'm really well. No, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is. A meeting of minds, sharing of ideas, and just having fun. So, yeah, it's cool, Martin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. You actually remind me of a friend of mine who's almost got as big a smile on his face as you all of the time. Almost. So here we are. Thank you so much for agreeing to spend this time with me. I mean, it's amazing. If you'd said to me by episode 27, I would be speaking to the author of Selling for Dummies in this series, I would not have believed you. That's clearly down to the generosity, brilliance of our friend Warren Cass. So thank you, man, for coming and agreeing to talk to me today. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. Well, it's great to be here. It's great because ultimately, like yourself, I believe my role is to give, to share, to help. I've been fortunate. I would argue that I've earned some of the successes rather than just been lucky. But, at the end of the day, it's not about me. I love to say, well, this is what I've done. It's worked. Try it. This is what I've got an idea. Try it. The reward for me is the feedback from someone going, oh, man, that was great. Thank you.
Yes, I really believe that as well. I really believe that. There is something, we've just been talking. I'm on this mission. I still want to help the people who aren't ready to be helped. I still want to be converting the non-converters. People go into business and they don't understand this is about finding, winning, and keeping customers profitably. And that's the whole gig, and they don't want to do the bit that will actually have the biggest impact in terms of their success, which is the sales and the marketing. So, yeah, that's what this is all about. It really is about giving people everything they could possibly need. That's what this is about. So you know the drill here. There are only 5 questions. The first question is, how are you qualified to talk to us about sales? Who are your customers and what is it that you do for them? How do you add value to their lives? What is your recommendation for anyone who is interested to get better at sales or invest more in their sales? What should people read? And who can you throw under the bus to have one of these conversations with me? So let's start at the beginning. How on earth are you qualified, Ben Kench, to talk to us about sales?
Okay. So a potted history of my life selling. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So from about the age of 7 or 8, if you like, I was selling. And I'm sure you and anybody watching or listening would understand that what we now know is the biggest sales processes in the world are religion and politics. And so ultimately, I, without knowing the label, was raised to do that. And I've always, I guess, had the entrepreneurial spirit. I had little businesses on the side, even when I was at school. I left school and set up my first business cleaning windows. I sold that because I was suddenly successful cleaning 400 houses every week. And then I went into selling the windows that I'd been cleaning. So it sort of just naturally progressed. And I always have found, that I could connect and relate to people. I didn't ever know the word selling until I was 21. And somebody saw in me the potential to sell double glazing because they met me when I was cleaning windows. And that's the first time I really heard the word or understood selling. I'd been doing it. I always will do it. But it was a natural process, not an engineered one. Um, and sorry, from then going forward, really, I did all the things that probably people say, oh, well, I started selling double glazing. My mother said, oh, that'll do till you get a proper job. And since then I've gone on to sell the timeshare, holiday property industry, the life insurance industry. I've sold B2B capital plan to large industry with a sales process that's 12 or sometimes 18 months. And I've sold home improvements and training products to the consumer, and you've done the deal within an hour or certainly on the day. So I've done 45 years of leading in sales in all aspects of sales. And then when I was on the stage sharing sales skills, that's when I got approached by the largest publishing house in the world to write a book. So quite proud that they did their diligence and came to me. And I don't say that I know it all, but I say that every single day I'm learning more, and I'd love to help.
Okay, so a couple of things. The first thing that interests me is that no careers advisor, I don't think, has ever advised somebody to go into sales. We're not taught at school what sales is, or the huge benefits, or the great career that you can have in sales. I'm sure not everybody does. But I said this, it's amazing how you guys are coming in too. So I had two PR people, and now I've got two salespeople called Ben. But I said to Ben in the conversation that's going up tomorrow, if somebody had said to me when I was 15 or 16, you could have a career where you could play on amazing golf courses in South Africa, go to Cricket World Cup finals, basically be paid to take people out for lunch and schmooze them. I've had trips away. If somebody had said that to me when I was 14, 15, I would have taken their hand off for that opportunity, except if they'd said, but it's a sales job. Because, we have no idea at school what sales is, but we've all got a sense that we don't want to be in sales. So it seems to me that every Larry kid, I don't know if you were a Larry kid, I was a Larry kid at school, someone should have sat me down and said, you're going into sales. What you do, jumping up and down, getting people's attention, getting people to laugh, making friends with people, all of that stuff that you do, you're tailor-made for a career in sales, and that's what you should do. It doesn't happen.
No, I think there's two fundamental issues with that. Part of the work that I do, and if in my book, part of the reason why you get better at selling is you study and you learn about people and the psychologies and characters of people. And so as a broad spectrum of people, 80% of people are raised in a world and come into life under a fear of risk, risk averse, play it safe type mindset. Unfortunately, massive percentages of those become teachers and influencers. And so going through the schooling system, which is designed to keep you in line and designed to put you in a factory or an office because it's a machine created to serve another purpose. I'm not saying education isn't good, but the system that is currently education doesn't actually serve the learner. It tells them what to learn to serve the overall purpose. So you've got a teacher that comes from a different mindset, encouraging the student to stay in that safe mindset. And those of us that are more maverick, more confident, and not so risk averse, we generally get ostracized. I've been in direct sales, as I've said, all my life, and I've probably always felt the odd one out. I still do. So I think the truth, Martin, is most people are told, don't go that way. You need to be over here. It's safe. And the other side of that is in the early days of the sales profession, let's be honest, there were some very negative instances. We probably all have got stories of how someone was ripped off. And so the play it safe brigade always had examples to point out that painted selling as a profession bad. So I think you put those two together, it's unlikely you're ever going to get someone from a, shall we say, normal household being encouraged to go into sales. But thankfully, what tends to happen is they'll get into teenage life and they'll want more money, and all of the things that the new world gives them, like YouTube or social media, and all of a sudden they'll find an outlet for their flair and hopefully progress from there.
Okay, good. So you've also then double glazing. I did about 20 minutes double glazing. That's how long I lasted double glazing. That's hard sales. Insurance, and did you say timeshare?
I did, yes.
So if you wanted a CV of like the most notorious sales activities, that's kind of where you started.
Well, as I say, it started with a Watchtower and a Weight magazine on the doorstep. Now, you don't get much more rejection than that. So I think if you're going to go into a field where you make success, if 80% tell you to go forth, then that's the best arena. Religion, go away. It's where you get your skin thickened. But yeah, you're right. I've been at the absolute coalface. And at the absolute coalface, you just have to learn to be a person, a human being, and relate to the human being the other side. And you do still have a need, if you like, or in the old days, a need to sell. But you have to put first the relationship, because, selling a holiday property in southern Tenerife, the people walking along the beach are not saying, "Oh my God, I want to go and buy a property today."
Yeah. So these are 100% commission type roles, are they?
Yes. Yes.
So how do you put the customer first when you're not going to make any money at all unless they buy something?
Well, if to put that in if I was selling windows and I walked into a house that had new double glazing, then I wouldn't be selling them windows because they clearly don't need them. However, if they had, which was the case, invited us in because they were interested in selling in buying windows at some stage, then, arguably the need or the want can be a grey area between two, but they had already the initial thought. So my skill was to convert the thought into action rather than hit them with a club on something they didn't initially want.
Okay, good. Now, what do I think? I think that is the skill of a salesperson, is to somehow identify what it is that people want to buy and make that available to them. It's not what happens in sales, in a lot of sales. So we're getting towards like why sales has such a terrible reputation. So if you say to people, what kind of animal is a salesperson, they'll tell you they're a snake or an eel or a boar or a, all of these or a jackal or a wolf, sly, conniving, blah, blah. That's it. How much of sales is that, do you think? Like, is sales worthy of its terrible reputation? That's what I'm kind of interested to know.
Well, yeah, great question. And I would, hand on heart, probably say yes, it is, sadly. There have been countless instances, and arguably still today. I mean, without being political in any way, the biggest snake oil salespeople type in the world come from the banking sector, where they just basically mislead and then they pay a fine and say, sorry, we got that wrong. But, there are still instances in everyday sales and in corporate life where I don't think they do it with any morality, and I would never stand for that. I'm a passionate leader in sales from a integrity and morality and good for all perspective. If someone can genuinely benefit from what I'm offering them, then I believe it's my duty to help them have it, because they will genuinely benefit. But if I know that they won't genuinely benefit and it's just about my commission, then I subscribe. One of my mantras that I share all the while with my folks is, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and I also 100% believe that. And I've never knowingly missold anyone anything. I have always been on a mission to find out how. You see, this is what I think about salespeople. I've never met a salesperson who isn't interested in helping people. I've been in sales environments where that all gets a little bit sketchy, where, I've been in sales environments where people openly lie to make the sale and don't care at all because, customer service can deal with the backlash whenever it is. They've made their commission, they move on. The ones who do care, sorry?
No, I was going to say I agree 100%.
The
It's
ones who
just
do care, yeah, the ones who do look after their customers, do a good job, provide a good service, are the ones typically in the long run, certainly, who are the most successful because they're the ones that now have a network of happy customers. They're the ones that will get the referrals. Those are the ones who will enjoy their money more because they'll know that they haven't had to rob anyone or connive anyone to get that money. So, yeah.
I think the biggest difference, Martin, is that we now have. So when I was first in people's houses in the early 80s, you could, and the world did, lie because there wasn't the network of information sharing. And so, if you'd lied, the consumer you'd lied to didn't really know how to check it out for the truth. What we've now got 40 years later is, thankful, a network of technology where actually you can't hide, and you can't hide for long. So the playing field and the awareness of the consumer or the purchaser, the balance of power has shifted. And that's a good thing because most consumers or purchasing people know that A, they don't need to do that choice today. B, they can find out some recommendations or referrals or history before they proceed. And so I'm grateful for technology, although it's arguably also still allowing negative influence or false image. It does give us a way to check out the scoundrels and protect ourselves.
Yeah, I do think that apart from, there's Watchdog and those kinds of programs where they show that people are still doing this, people will always find a way. I think people are like rats in that they will always find the easiest way. They'll go the easiest way they possibly can. And, I'm sure that there are salespeople out there who know that they're fleecing people. But, it's like everything in life. I suppose you get conditioned into a position where this is just what you do, and then you just do that. Okay, good. A friend of mine who's too successful currently to come and talk to me at the moment was a sales trainer when I first met him. And he says, I don't know if you speak Norse, do you?
No.
No. His thing was, or one of his things was, that the word sales comes from the Norse word selja, which means to serve. It sounds like complete bollocks to me every time I say it, but, I'm saying it. But that to me is the way it should be. It should be that salespeople are employed by businesses to help people to make the right buying decisions, to support those people to address the challenges, the needs, the desires, the whatever it is that they come with. In which case, selling should be the easiest job in the world.
Arguably, and so often, so there's two sides to the sales challenge, if you like. First side is I'm selling something that you've never used, didn't know you needed to, and what you've never had, you don't miss. So my sales challenge is, Martin, you really need to have this life insurance will writing service. And you're sitting there going, well, I don't really think I need to. Why do I need to? To me, it just looks like an expense. So the sales hurdle number one is selling something that you don't see a need for, and to show you where actually, yeah, that would be a blooming good thing to have. Sales hurdle number two is where Martin's saying, actually, I do need to buy a new sound system, or I do need to buy something else, will writing service or life insurance again. And so Martin looks for 3 or 4 comparative choices before he decides. So the second hurdle from a sales professional is you need to pick me out of them. And you're going to get a mixture of both in your daily life as a salesperson. And ultimately, you've whichever approach is going to be different. And that's probably where I'm constantly seeing a challenge. Salespeople, inverted commas, today, by and large, are not very good. So they will resort to a blunt instrument approach rather than a refined approach. And they often have, one presentation, whichever your issue is, they just say the same thing. So sadly, I see a few scoundrels who don't care, a majority who are just not very good. But the caveat with all of that is ultimately buyer beware. And there is a responsibility on the consumer or the purchaser to just buy cleverly.
Okay, 100%. I agree with that. 100%. Now, I had a career in sales, short career, 10 years. I really loved it, really enjoyed it. But when I came to start my business, I decided to position myself as marketing because I'd always been I'd always been like one of these hunter-gatherers, The things I sold had never been marketed. So everything I sold started with a conversation, me phoning somebody up saying, you've got no idea who I am, but we should have a conversation about this. So what I think now, because I positioned myself as marketing back in 2004, is that really, if your marketing is good enough, then your sales should be really easy. I think very often part of the issue is salespeople getting in the way of the sale happening. And I think another part of the issue is marketing not generating the quality or quantity of leads, which are the work of salespeople. And that forces people into this situation where they have to behave like snakes or wolves or whatever it is.
Yeah,
what do you think about that?
Well, so, I know that if you haven't spoken to, of Barnaby, and Barnaby and I are constantly having these, because he's a marketer. He says you only need marketing, and I'm a salesperson. And say, you still got to convert the lead, and so that's an ongoing debate. But where I see it is, marketing has a job to create interest. When it's done well, it creates well qualified interest. But most people that are purchasing, even when they're in the funnel from a good marketing campaign, they generally want to get more than one price or more than one bit of resource information. So if it's a low value product and an easily purchased item, they may just click and buy, and marketing's done its job. But the higher up the value scale you get, when you start to spend something which means more to the purchaser, they do consider that purchase by looking at other options. And so marketing will stimulate that inquiry, but 3 other companies will have done marketing. And so the purchaser is looking at 3 or 4. At that point, you're going to need a salesperson with skill to address what I mentioned earlier, the second option, where pick me from those other 3. So I don't see a world where you can just have marketing unless it's a commodity box shifting enterprise. The more you go up the difficulty scale, the more you go up the price scale, the consumer or the purchaser wants more. They want to talk to a person, and that's the sell conversion process.
Yes. Okay, good. And I'm glad you realised that I've been speaking to Barnaby, because I have been speaking to Barnaby. And Barnaby was telling me adamantly that there is no need, you shouldn't invest in outreach anymore, because there are enough people looking for the products and services that you buy, and you really need to position yourself that they come to you. Now, because Barnaby is amazing, I've forgotten why we do outreach, and I didn't challenge him hard enough. Maybe if I speak to him 3 times, I will on the next conversation. So the point of me going looking for my customers in my sales career was that I would approach the people I wanted to sell to, so I have absolute control now. I want to sell to that business. Here I go. If you are reliant entirely on inbound, you don't get to choose who those people are. I mean, arguably it doesn't matter because they want the product or some variation of the product. But there's that. The thing that never occurred to me in those 10 years is that all the time I was looking for customers, there might have been customers looking for me, and they were never going to find me because I never had a website. I didn't have a stand at an exhibition. I wasn't advertising anywhere. So I think this is interesting. I think it's interesting that Barnaby is so adamant.
Yeah.
No need for outreach anymore.
Well, I love him to bits, but here's the thing. Categorically, time and time again, if go back to the old days, we had yellow pages. Everything was yellow pages. And I can tell you dozens of stories where I'd meet a client and they'd say, we do lots of marketing. We're in the yellow page. We get loads of inquiries. And then I would sit down and be a bit diligent with the measurement and push them and say, okay, how many of those inquiries purchased? What was your margin? What was your sale value? And I can tell you from measurement after measurement that the shopper that responds to an advert will shop to 3 or 4. And the shopper that shops at 3 or 4 will always be more price aware. And the salesperson will always make less money when it's a conversion. If you can be brave enough to pick your right profile and skilled enough to sell from seed of idea all the way through to signature for purchase, then you'll get more money out of that customer. So there's always room for both. You're always going to need some sales skills to convert the inbound inquiry. But if you're good enough with your targeting and good enough with your testimonial and showing what your benefits are, I think you're good enough to go and get the high ticket cream sale where they weren't looking, but they found you or you found them and they go, yeah, I'm glad you did. Thank you. I'll have it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's definitely room for both. I teach digital marketing now, so I'm telling people that somebody who searches for something is essentially a motivated buyer. Because there's levels to awareness. You need to know at some point that you've got a problem that needs to be addressed to actually invest in addressing that issue. So that's part of the awareness. People who are searching for something are already on that journey. But it hadn't occurred to me also that they were engaging with more than one supplier, and so that's going to have an effect on the way that conversation goes.
There's a great deal of psychology involved and relationship connection, and it's never going to be so black and white that you can draw conclusive it's this way or this way. But I'll always come at it from if you're good enough with your people skills and your connection skills and you've planted the right seed, very, very often, even when people didn't think they wanted it, then you do a blooming good job. Then they go, oh, before I buy, I'll just have a look round. And then they'll look around and come back to where they started because you have a different place in their mind and heart if you did a good job at the beginning. And you'll talk to lots of shoppers, even, my wife, she'll go out, she'll look for a coat, she'll see one in the shop and spend all day and then come back at the end of the day and get the first one. It's just a part of our brain pattern. So that's why I believe that if you've got the skill set right and your offer and your everything benefit for the consumer or customer is right, then going out and picking the right client will get you more success. But the inbound ones, you're quite right. If they've already got an awareness, they want it, they will buy off someone. But my experience in selling is that'll be a lower margin deal.
Yes. And the thing about having these conversations is that I'm reminded of really brilliant stuff that I used to know and do and haven't done forever. So when I started the Effective Marketing Company, it was like sales consultancy, essentially. It was like I would go into businesses, it'd be, okay, what would I do if I was a professional salesperson in this business? And of course, I'd do my canvassing and that was the advice. But what I used to say to people then that they loved was, who exactly is driving this bus? because if you're not driving the bus, that is your business. If your customers are driving it, you're in trouble. If your staff are driving it, you're in trouble. So you need to take control. And this led to a tagline, which was "Take charge of your business," and that was the tagline for a period of time until I had a barbecue and invited a load of customers. And I was standing in my kitchen looking out into the garden, watching these people essentially fight over the barbecue. And it's like, oh my God, I've attracted a load of control freaks. Do you know what I mean? Because this take charge thing. But I think that's what it's about. It's about deciding who your customers are going to be really has an impact on how effective you are in delivering for those customers and how successful your business is.
Yeah.
So I want to say again what I said before, which is if your marketing is good enough, then the salespeople have the right attitude, then sales should be the easiest job in the world. I mean, if you're doing Barnaby Winter style marketing where your marketing's actually qualifying the people, then the sales bit should be really easy. They shouldn't need, like any dummy should do it. They shouldn't need a book.
And you're right, of course. But unfortunately, the world isn't black and white. And some of the people that come through some of those funnels are not quite as qualified as we'd like them to be, or they could be, completely qualified, but actually misaligned in terms of, I didn't think it was going to cost that much. So it's a beautiful dance that we all have to play with. But anybody that's running a small business or anybody that's running any business, they're going to have both. They've got to have marketing that is really drilling down into the right prospect target and really nurturing a good qualified lead through a funnel. And then a salesperson that really is doing it with integrity and helping and serving. And the nirvana would be that the net marketing and sales people talk and share ideologies and marketing messages and sales language, and it all works. But the sadness out there is the marketing department go off and do their own thing and say, well, we've done our job. And the sales department often think of the marketing department just as the people who spend a lot of money. So, the beautiful disruption between the two is what keeps it interesting.
Yeah, it is what keeps it interesting, but it is completely stupid. I mean, it is completely stupid because the attitude towards salespeople is so maligned that even business owners I've worked with, they've employed these sharks, to go out and they encourage them, they encourage them maybe to rip off customers for the benefit of the business. But then they also paint them in a corner where they are almost forced then to behave like that as well. So that's the first thing. The thing about sales and the thing about the sales and marketing and the difference between the two is also insane. It should be a virtuous cycle. It's a what's the word? It's a chronology. You do your sales marketing, you do your marketing, you get the lead. The lead is the work of the salesperson. That's the way it works. That's the order in which it works. It should be a virtuous cycle because the marketing people should speak to the market and make sure that and let them know this thing's available. And then the salesperson actually gets to have a conversation with the people who are most interested in that thing. They should be feeding back into marketing. So the thing becomes tighter and tighter and tighter and more efficient. That doesn't happen.
No. I agree with you. It should be working together for the same common goal of the company, but they're often working against each other because of egos or budgets or monetary amounts that they get paid and they don't. But, the simple, hard reality is for all of those people in businesses that don't like sales, don't really want to do sales, they've accepted the negatives and not looked at how it should be done. The simple, hard reality is until a sale is made, there is no money for anything or anyone else. So it is the top of the food chain, whether you like it or not.
100%. And this is why we have to have this conversation, because business people go into business not wanting to do sales or marketing. And you're right. If nothing is sold, so this is what I said to Ben in the last conversation. It's like sales and marketing people are the least respected people in the business. They're like the two smallest kids in the playground picking on each other, and yet they're feeding everyone. It's like it's absurd.
I think it changes, Martin, in if you look at a lot of truly small to medium type enterprises, they genuinely are entrepreneur led. And a lot of the time that entrepreneur is salesy. Now, sometimes the entrepreneur is brilliant at technology and has a partner, and a lot of really great businesses are partnerships where they don't argue who's got the best skill. They just know they need each other. But there are a lot of entrepreneur-led businesses that have grown successfully because they come from a sales drive in the very first instance. Not quite the same with corporates, because corporates are then run by financiers and accountants and balance sheets, which isn't quite the same feel for either the consumer or for the way the money is generated. They only care about the money that's generated. So, I think a lot of us totally independently would say we don't like dealing with corporates. They don't care about us. They fob us off. They treat us like we're just a number. And most of us do not like dealing with a corporate entity. Maybe we should change our buying habits. Maybe we'd live in a better world if we all tried to support and buy from the local and the smaller business, because then we would have a world where it's about the people. You'll have greater integrity or access to them if they're not operating with integrity. But the corporate world that we've got around them at the moment, especially global corporate, they are bullies, they're impersonal, and we're not helping ourselves by supporting them with our money.
I knew I liked you. The thing is, this is a big part of the issue. And what's gone on in the last 2 years is, essentially what's going on. Well, it's interesting what's going on. But for me, I sometimes talk about myself being a revolutionary communist, but I don't believe I am actually that. What I am is maybe a sensible person who's looking about how skewed business has become, where so much is gobbled up by corporations and there's so little left for small businesses. It is, I think, small businesses versus the corporations. My mate was a butcher and he closed his shop 10 years ago because Tesco opened up, 8 doors from him. His business became, unviable in that second. So I really believe that is the fight that's going on. That's the fight that I'm interested to fight through these videos. If yes. I can, yep.
Sorry, there's a bit of a lag. I see whenever I'm at an event or speaking, there is an audience, and part of their excuse is, well, I can't make the money because of the Sainsbury's or the Tesco's or whatever. And then I say, well, I hear that, but can I just ask you, where do you go for your shopping? And then obviously I'll go to Sainsbury's or Tesco's because it's better. And therein lies a problem. We've got somebody that's moaning about an issue, but actually for their own buying, I buy off Amazon. Why? Because it's easy and cheap and convenient. Well, there's your problem. I've made a concerted effort. I can't change the world, but I can change me and hope it ripples out. If I'm looking for something, I'll try always to find somebody independent and preferably local, but at least British maybe. Now, if we all did that, the only god that the corporates serve is money. And as soon as they realise that they couldn't command our money, they might actually try to win the money by being nice. But the power lies with us as consumers, as does the solution to the problem. If we moan about a problem, what are we doing? We're probably usually part of the problem.
Yes, that is entirely true. That is entirely true. And what can we do about that other than empowering smaller businesses to provide viable alternatives? And
well, the butcher could have said, one of the great things that happened here in the UK with all the oppression of lockdown, smaller pubs said, shit, can't not open for 3 months. So why don't I do takeaways?
Yes.
And so necessity being the mother of invention, a few publicans closed and moaned, a few publicans stayed open and tried, and a few again expanding into a whole new business of, actually, we've got a kitchen, let's make an effort to talk to all of our existing customers, all the people within a mile, 5 mile radius, let's gear up to just shift until we can open for beer, we'll deliver the food. And some of them were delivering the beer as well. So, that's the evolution of a species, isn't it? We evolve when there's a different hardship.
Yes, that is. And I think that bringing it back to marketing, I will be there with you for the revolution. Don't worry, man. But bringing it back to marketing, that's just great marketing. Is like having the ear of the market or having that channel open. And when I started this, I was asking that question, about the lockdowns, about how people are evolving, adapting, all of those things. I'm not asking that question anymore because I'm bored of it and hopefully it's over. But it's really interesting. So let's go to question number 2. You're clearly qualified to talk to us about sales.
Yeah.
Question number 2, who are your customers? What is it that you do for them? How do you add value to their lives?
This one's a little easier, really, because I love helping a smaller business where it's a person. Well, I'll bore you for just a moment with my story. I'd been all around sales environments, and I decided to come back to the UK from Tenerife and Spain. And I came back to the UK, and I knew how good I was at sales. I used to run a sales operation that did $500,000 a week, just a small room. I'm damn good at sales. And I came back to the UK and thought, right, I'll get into a sales career. Nobody would hire me because of one word. They didn't bother to interview me. They didn't bother to talk to me to see how good I was at selling. They just saw a word of timeshare, and I never got any. So I thought I'd better start my own business. Set up and started going. And because I felt I got no option, I went to other people in marketing and training, and basically all they were trying to do was sell me something for several £1,000s, which I didn't have. And to cut a long story short, I got going, but after 2 years of not really going far enough, fast enough, I had to put all of my efforts and my cabinet and my files into a skip. And I kid you not, I was in a very tearful, low place for a good year and a half. I just felt such a failure. But the cascade of that, the disruption in the house, the arguments with my wife, my daughter seeing the turmoil, the pressure on the finance and the stretch that gives with everything. The cascade of a business failing is the home and the family. And to me, the one thing that drives me every single day with the small business audiences, and it makes me tearful, but there is a child in a home where the parents are fighting and splitting up because of something as stupid as money, because the business wasn't right. I have very few things I'm good at in life, but I can fix the business to solve the family problem. And out of love, that's what drives me. So who's my customer? It's the entrepreneur-led small business that's still impacting families, because it's the family that is important, not the money.
Wow. I'm not crying. But the thing that you're saying is 100% correct. So the reason that this war is worth having is because it's too hard to run a business, and it is too close to people's well-being. It really is. So typically a small business owner's house is at risk if they don't pull off this ridiculously difficult thing, which is being successful in business. Their relationships are at risk. And then, you just go down a horrible wormhole of horrible things that could happen. Like, there are tens of laws that specifically, like, there are 46 ways you can go to prison by being a business owner than not. It's ridiculous what these small business owners put on the line to run a small business. And it is ridiculous the benefit that these small businesses bestow on the economy. Every growth in GDP, in employment, in all of these things comes entirely from small businesses. Big businesses, corporations, they're not interested in employing people. They're interested, like you say, in turning a profit. So this war, 100%, is worth having. It absolutely is worth having. Yeah. Okay, good. So that's who your customers are. What is it that you're doing? How are you delivering value to their lives?
Well, so you've got a business that's sitting there saying, firstly, the biggest recognition is that is there a problem? Because the saddest thing is that pride or ego or reputation get in the way, and the ostrich buried head is the death blow too often. If there was more, the mental health type argument, just talk to someone. Don't sit there night after night saying it'll get better, it's not that bad. If it is painful, it's bad, get it fixed. So, the first thing we've got to, as a society, as neighbours, as loving friends, we've got to say, talk to someone, man. If it ain't right, get someone to help you, because it's better to swallow some pride and get a solution than it is to be full of pride and go down in flames. It's just no fun. So the biggest hurdle is to get that, will you help me? But once someone says, oh, look, I think I could do some help, Ben, then it's just a question of pulling it apart bit by bit and saying, what exactly are you selling? Why should people buy it? Why should people buy it from you? What are you doing to attract people? And what's going right and what's going wrong? The first stage is to pull it all apart and find out exactly which bits you've got to tweak. But then usually in any business, it's a series of little tweaks, and it's a compound effect for the growth. It isn't one massive thing that's broken. It's maybe 20 things you can improve. And it's that old adage, if you have a 1% tweak 100 times over 2 years, you've 100% growth. So, let's treat it with love and respect, but let's not leave it to just gradually die because there's too much at stake.
There is too much at stake. And I think that is a real issue, this pride thing. Nobody wants to be seen to have failed. I mean, in the UK, it's exacerbated because you're not also supposed to be seen to be trying. If it's not effortless, then it's not cool. So you can't be seen to be trying, but also you can't be seen to fail. Gary Vaynerchuk, I don't have very much respect for, but he said a brilliant thing recently, which is nobody really gives a shit. I wish I'd known that. I wish I'd known that when I went through some of the more challenging times, is because the pressure was, you can't fail. Basically, you've stood up in front of everyone and told them that you can do this. And if you can't, you're going to look like an idiot. That, I think, is the biggest pressure. Even more, I've never been in real financial difficulty. But that's the issue. It's the pride. That is a big issue.
And as I'm hoping that we're evolving and we're being more loving and we're realizing the emptiness and the just inadequacies of anything that's material. I mean, who gives a fuck if you've got a boat? How big is it? Is that the game we're in? Comparing size? Really? Let's just be human and loving, and you know what, if you're happy and healthy, I don't care if you rent your house or you own a mansion. I don't care if you've got 3 houses and 3 boats and a Ferrari on the drive. If you're not happy, it's worthless. Now, I'm not saying you can't be happy and wealthy, and I'm not saying you can't be without money and healthy, but really, we've got our values out of alignment as a society. And the only way we're going to shift that is one by one for us to be who told us that it was important to be wealthy? Who sold us the dream to have lots of material goods? My guess, it's those people that want to sell us credit and keep us trapped and make them rich while we're paying everything off. It's just empty. And until we shift that in me, you, every one of us for ourselves, we're going to be in their trap. Be in business, yes. Serve people, yes. Make money, yes. But don't make it about money, because that's a hiding to nothing.
Okay, welcome to the revolution, brother.
Yeah.
Because this is where we almost got to when we decided we should start recording this, is I think, so it was Barnaby had this conversation. He sits his clients down and he says to them, what do you need to sell? Like, what are your costs? What are your this? What are your that? What is everything? What do you need to sell? And we will just sell that. And that, to me, is something that I used to say. I used to give away a free hour's consultation. This is something I said 5 times a day for 2 years. Look, work out what it is that you need to sell. Because if there is no ceiling, there is no end. And that is a stressful situation. You know, when you at least know I've got all of my bases covered and we're good, then that's a really healthy situation to be in. Because the other thing that's going on for business owners is that they are thinking about their business for every waking second of every single day, and then they're going to bed and they're dreaming about it, you know, and that's also not healthy. So I think, but you're not supposed to say this because you wrote Selling for Dummies. You're supposed to say, like HP were convincing their salespeople to go out and buy multi-million pound houses so that they'd be saddled with that debt, so that they'd have to carry on working for them. Like, is that not what you're supposed to be selling? It's saying.
Well, in the 80s, that is what we did. You know, I ran sales teams and ran me, and the whole ethos was, you know, throw your cash around because it means you've got to earn it again next week. So you keep them hungry, you keep them in line. You know, that was the approach of the 80s. And maybe in some dinosaur type minds or cultures, it's still there. But the honest truth is we have to, and we hopefully are evolving. It's an empty, shallow world if it's all about the money. And thankfully, there's a few that are starting to say, yeah. And I constantly ask clients and audiences when I'm speaking, do you want to be rich? And they go, no, I'm not bothered about being rich. And we don't need to be rich. If it happens, great. But what we want, Maslow's hierarchy, we want all our needs covered and breathing space. And so actually, as you've said, and as Barnaby says, you know, we have to approach selling from a less is more, as we talked about. My book, More Money, Less Stress, because I've always stood there saying, okay, nothing wrong with making money, but let's not do it at the cost of burning out. How do we make your level of success with less effort? Okay, let's improve our efficiencies, systemize where we can, and let's make a business that's an efficient machine, not pure grunt to burn you out. But yeah, you know, it's not all about the numbers. It's about the right numbers.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I don't know what the statistics are for small business owners who do get burnt out. I mean, I'm speaking to people, there's people I'd love to be speaking to here, just don't have the space to give me an hour and 15, people I know well, do you know what I mean? Don't have the space to give me an hour and 15 minutes to get this done. I think it's a real danger. I think it's a real risk.
Yeah, you know, if you know people like that, let me have a chat to them, because if that's the case, they're out of alignment. And, you know, sooner or later, you, me, anybody, if we're out of alignment, the wheel's going to come off.
Yes, 100%. What did I want to say? It's changing, isn't it? 20 years ago, apparently, there were 4 million businesses in the UK. There's now 6 million. So but we know that the corporations have driven lots of styles of business out of business. So what does that say about the landscape, I wonder?
I think what we've experienced since, remarkably so, since probably end of the 90s, certainly mid noughties, we've seen this lifestyle cultural change. Self-employed, live to live instead of live to work. Now that's been a huge rising wave up until 2-3 years ago, and in my view, I think that's why the powers that be have brought in some of these oppressions and what have you in the last 2 years, because we were sitting there as a planet going, well, let's just have a laptop and go to Bali and have a life. And that doesn't serve the machine that they want us to be a servant to. So I think there is a sway amongst humanity generally to have income or money from something that I'm in control of, so that I feel better for my life and my family. Refinements are needed, but there's more of us in the small business now than ever, because we're trying to get rid of the oppression of the slave mentality. It's not quite right, because they're still a bit of a slave to themselves, but at least they've recognised that slave to the machine isn't where they want to be. I think, though, that the biggest, as we said a moment ago, my personal belief is that if we shift the buying habits, then everything else will unfold. There will be more people wanting to jump into small business space because more small businesses are being supported. If we adjust our buying habits, there won't be the issues of, getting ripped off and getting bullied and not being able to do anything about it. If my internet service is crap, I can go to someone that cares, but I know that there isn't an internet provider anywhere that actually cares. I'm too small for their machine. So, when we wake up as spending people and businesses and we shift our buying habits, everything else will follow.
Yeah, I really think that. And I think we have to shift our buying habits more. I've got this idea that will change the world called spare to share, which is just letting people know that they have enough, they're good enough, and in fact they have stuff to share with people who are less well off, I think, and I think that's really important. So we really need to start thinking about what we need to buy and how we're motivated to buy, because I'm sure part of the reason that the news is so stressful is because stressed people buy more stuff, and so it feels like the machine, I'm not saying that this isn't a conspiracy theory, the machine has adjusted to this consumerism where if people aren't as happy as they could be, then they will buy more stuff. The whole point of everything is to have stuff bought, and so on and so on and so on. But I could buy less, and I think everyone could buy less, and they would be a little bit happier if they were. And if they were investing that energy in helping someone who genuinely needs help, that genuinely makes people happy. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
You're a parent, and I'm a parent, and as I said, it's been the focus of my life. That child is grateful maybe for the gift that daddy or mummy buys them, but they would much rather have the time, not the trinkets. And that's one of the mantras that I'm always trying to share with business owners. It's time that's more precious than the trinkets that you can buy. So just adjust your value system. Maybe we need counselling or loving or just a smack for a wake up, but we've got to adjust our value system, because I believe that it's the machine creating the stress because they know that stress drives purchase. It's by design. However, if we just, there's a brilliant book out there you may have heard of, may have read, Stuffication. I mean, I read it because I'm already on that get rid of stuff, I don't need stuff. But actually, we just don't need the crap that we don't wear, or that we throw away 2 years later because there's a new. Why does anyone need a new phone every year? The one that's 5 years old still does more than we could ever imagine. We're trapping ourselves. So that I have this diverse head that I love business and I love sales, and where the customer wants and needs it, sell it, and sell it ethically with integrity and help. But conversely, we don't need to be encouraging people to buy stuff that they don't need. Let's all save some of that pressure and go and have genuine time with our kids. Get there with energy. Roll round and hug. Be not so knackered that you can give and share and be interested. We've just all out of kilter. The last 40 years of this consumerist society, maybe the last 50 years, it's not served us. And I hope that we wake up as a race. There's nothing wrong at all with being in business. And if you can serve someone, feel good about it. But let's, as a race, adjust our value system and our buying habits. And I think in 5 years' time, we could be all a lot healthier and a lot happier.
Yeah, good. What a shitty sales podcast this turned into. We've turned into a couple of lovies telling people, to care more and sell less. But actually, what this is about for me always is about reframing this stuff so that people don't have to feel shitty about selling. Just think about it slightly differently and do it slightly differently. And you can be happy doing that. Like, don't be under pressure to hit stupid sales targets that nobody knows why they exist, because then all you're doing is you're putting pressure on your production people to produce more, which means more stuff is likely to go wrong, less people are likely to be, and so on and so on and so on. So I think if what we're arriving at in this conversation is a situation where people feel better about sales and realize that they have to do much less of it, then that for me is a really nice place to have got to, I think.
Yeah, it comes down to, Martin, the question is, to the business owner, why? Why are you doing this? Why do you need that level of target? Why do you want to have some sort of presence that's so many staff? Or, when you start asking and peeling back, that issue of why usually comes down to a distorted sense of worth. And so there's some healing inside, and when you dig down into why you're doing this, you change the approach of the business. But if you dig down into why should the customer buy it, you also change the sales process. But we're doing stuff because we're caught up in a merry-go-round. It's the hamster wheel, isn't it? It's the classic hamster wheel. We're all running because someone said run. Hello.
Yeah. And the thing about small businesses, the danger of serving small businesses is that you are dancing with that ego. So famously, if you're the person who turns up on the day that they're in a shitty mood, you are in trouble. But I think that is a large part of the issue with small businesses, is that they are ego driven. And I suppose by necessity, who's going to put their hand up and say, I'm the person to do this, if they haven't got ego. But it seems to me and especially if you're providing sales and marketing as a service, those egos feel that they may not have control over a lot in their business. But this is so vague, the sales and marketing piece. And so they can decide exactly how it should be done. Do you think?
Well, I think, so arguably the sales results decide how it should be done, because if you do it one way and get the right results, and if you include in the measurement of results the feeling and the spin-off and the customer service and everything else, if you get the right results by measuring as a whole, then that will tell you you're doing it the right way. If you're doing it a certain way and getting, shall we say, volume of sales as a result, but the cascade, as you mentioned earlier, is service drain and not good reputation, then you're not getting the whole result, you're getting a part of the result. So The system needs to be changed. I've said this, and I know we agree on it. If you have a holistic approach, that business needs to mean that all the customers are in tune with the business. They get the business, they become fans of the energy of the business. And so they've been sold on more than the it. I used to be a fan of Apple. And it wasn't just the machinery or the phone and the computer. It was when I went into the shop, I just got proper service. And it was the culture of looking after the customer that made me an Apple fan for many years. I'm not now because of their recent stance on other things, but we've all got experiences where we bought from somewhere and it was a pleasure to buy from them, because every time we went there or spoke to them, they remembered us, they looked after us, they were interested in us. And when you drill down to any of us into those experiences of a business interaction, it's the human side of those experiences that created the loyalty and the fans. And so if we shift a business, I'm a salesman, but I'm going to grow a sales with a human connection approach, not the it and the benefits approach. I'm going to always work with a business to make sure that there's vulnerability, honesty, integrity, because bizarrely, the business owner that stands up and says, hey, I don't get everything right, but I always try because I care, that's the business owner that actually gets more deals.
Yes. And I believe that as well. And I think every business is an opportunity to have a positive impact on the world, you know? So it can support that ego. But I think the role of people like you and I is to direct that ego a little bit so the energy is going in the right places. But I'll tell you how bad this is. The last customer I had that got, I don't want to say I lost them, because I didn't. I definitely decided. We achieved 300% growth in 2 years. But this particular business owner got it into their head that it was 30%. And there was nothing I could do, except in the end, I just had to say, look, I'm not gonna feed this delusion any longer. You know, that's how bad the ego can be sometimes, where they will just change the reality to suit what it is that they want. That is the danger, I think, for small businesses.
Yeah, well, so I've had similar experiences more than once where, you know, the ego of the business owner was they wanted to be seen as successful, or more particularly, if I'm hired to just do sales training, which I'm more careful of these days, but you know, a business owner says, I want you to come in and do the sales training, but the sales manager didn't ask me in, and then there's a conflict of interest, and the ego of the sales manager says, I don't want this guy to show me I'm not driving the right sales team. So although I could have had an impact, the sales manager becomes a barrier because it would reflect badly on him, he thinks. So you do have ego issues. But I'm with you. I'd say, look, you know, if you stand clearly, squarely, this is what I stand for. I know me and I know what I expect in terms of values. And actually, I'll sack a customer if the value alignment isn't there.
Yes. And I think you have to. That's the truth. Okay, so you're saying that there are typically, or there might be up to 20 small things that need to be addressed when you work with your clients. What are the most common ones or the most impactful ones where people are not getting it quite right? Let's just say, because there's these egos. They're being idiots. They're getting it wrong, these egotists.
So let's look at what I see quite commonly. We'll have a small-ish business, maybe only 3, 4, 5 employees, and that's the same principle applies to the one-man micro business. But if we take the stereotypical 5 to 10 employees, the owner is too busy to speak to you. Now, when you drill that down, I will almost guarantee that there will be inefficient systems and not an awareness of the task time scenario. So I ask a business owner, how much do you think they're worth? They'll say, I'm worth, 250 grand a year because that's what my business generates. And I go, okay, so that's, a lot of money per day, maybe so much an hour, £250 an hour. What are you doing with your day? And they say, well, I had to do this and I was there doing that and I was here doing that. And I'm like, okay, why are you doing that? And they say, well, because it needed doing. And I say, no, but why are you doing that? Because you're worth £250 an hour and I can get that task done for £20 an hour. So really simple alignment of skills to tasks. And secondly, wrapped up in that, you'll have a business that's just overloaded with admin. So they're not, you should not have a business that 50% of the time is consumed with the administrative process. You need to have a sort of, my simple breakthrough rule of thumb is 20% admin, 40% marketing, 40% sales. Now, if you've got a sales and marketing bias and efficient systems, you don't get drained with administrative process. So they're the sort of overview initial looks. Where's the time going and what are your processes and systems like? Because there'll be clog and you've got to clear the clog and then you've got breathing space. Great. Now I've got 2 hours a day. Let me go and find some new customers. And then you drill into, well, who do we want to go to before we go charging out there? Let's go charging at the right people, else we just burn out 2 hours of effort. So there are some really quite simple things where we start. But if a business says, look, I'm quite well streamlined and I've got some good departments and I know it's quite efficient, well, then we look at the language and the style of selling. And typically a sell is a presentation, not really a two-way communication. And the sales delivery is so selfish, they hardly listen to what the potential buyer has got as a problem. So, they're fairly easy things to adjust. Anybody who's listening thinking, oh, I could have some problems, don't lose faith that they can be fixed quite quickly if you want to put pride to one side and just focus on how do I make it better.
Yeah. This is the first time I've had this conversation. I think it really is a barrier. And I think it really is, astounding how you can be drowning in admin when there are only 4 or 5 of you, but you actually can. And the other thing is that I was thinking while you were talking is, you get on this treadmill where you're taking on all of these new ideas, where you feel like you have to make every part of your business as probably start out thinking as good as possible, but then you just go through these, like the time management we were talking about earlier. Like I got fanatical about time management and I would go into the office on a Saturday morning and try and organize everything differently so it would be better. I'd have probably been better off getting on my bike for a couple of hours and being on the downs, So I think you just fall into this like archetype where you're wanting everything to be better. You're doing stuff about making it better, but maybe it takes somebody from outside to actually do the work. And I don't know what you think about that.
Well, so here's a simple analogy, Martin. Do you drive? I'm sure you do. We both drive. Now, so before we were in charge of a vehicle that could crash and burn and damage people's lives, we went through a training process to be proficient in a test before we were let loose with something that could crash and burn and wreck lives.
Yes. Sounds like
now,
a
when
business.
a business crashes and burns and it wrecks lives, what bloody training did we do? Oh, we didn't. We just thought we knew. Oh, hello.
But it is like that. And there's very few places, like you're saying, speak to somebody. Finding people who are good to speak to is also a mission, I think. I really think that. Okay. So I'm not sure if we've already covered this already, but what are your recommendations for people if they are feeling some of what we are talking about?
Okay. Fundamentally, take responsibility and don't ignore the problem any longer. We all know we've got an inner voice. We know when something's not right. We can dismiss it, deny it, bury it, ignore it, and carry on. But we know you got to listen to that inner niggle, accept responsibility, and just ask for help. Do you know what? The biggest and best success stories are often the ones that were humble enough to learn from others and not be so pride comes before a fall. So yeah, that's number one. We know there's a niggle. We listen to it and we say, can you help me? What's going wrong here? Because it's better to ask for help than crash and burn. And then, asking for help, being in the advice or the coaching game, people say, oh yes, but I haven't got the money to ask for help. Okay, well, go and do some online stuff or buy some books. You can get a lot of stuff that's okay as a start point for free. Invest 10 or 15 quid in some brilliant books. There's a library of knowledge out there. So firstly, have the balls to just try looking and try learning. Secondly, invest a little bit in yourself, because if the problem is several £1,000s a month, hey, invest some money in yourself to solve it. Don't try and do everything without spending, because that's half the problem. But there are books out there are courses out there are leaders out there that will help to a degree for free, because we're not all so commercial driven that we're charging you even for the first phone call like a lawyer might. But one thing's for sure, if you're sitting there as a business owner with a problem, and in your private thoughts it's been there a while, it ain't going away. Do something.
Yeah. And the vehicle analogy is perfect, because what you don't do if you realize you've got a problem in your vehicle is keep the pedal to the metal. You slow down, you have a think, and I think I could have done with that advice. I did whatever it was, 14 hours a day for 9 years. It was, my most popular YouTube videos had 600,000 views.
Wow.
The most, what's the word for it? Abusive, probably, comment just went straight through me. And this comment was just about how sick I look. Like, you look sick. You look like you need to sleep. You need to do something. You need to do something else. I removed it, but because it was so fucking true. I had worked 14, 15 hours a day for 9 years, and I was in bad shape. I was in really bad shape. And I think too many business owners are there. That's what I think.
Yeah. The other thing, just very, very quickly, as it came to me as you're talking, I see a lot of business owners that then jump ship or say, "Oh, I've got new business now," and there's nothing wrong. There's no right or wrong, just an is. But usually a person changes a badge or what they're focusing on now, or my new business now, because the other one wasn't right and they didn't put it right. And I see that in life with people that go through relationship after relationship, got a new girlfriend, got a new boyfriend. The common denominator isn't the business or the partner. It's something in here we're not addressing.
Yes.
And I wish people wouldn't say, "Oh, I've got a new business now because that one wasn't, things have changed. That wasn't not successful." No, when things aren't going right, look inside, because the answer's there.
Yes. Okay, cool. This has been a way more interesting chat than I was anticipating. And way more interesting, and not really, I don't know if it's been salesy enough. But I think what we're saying isn't what salespeople are supposed to say, but it's probably what should be said. Adjust your attitude to sales. Adjust your attitude to your customers, sell less, and potentially be much happier.
Serve.
Okay.
You mentioned the word serve.
Yes.
Don't sell, serve.
Yeah. So I've got this brilliant presentation called "I'm in the Mood for Selling," and it's basically it ends up playing the Nolan Sisters with everyone standing up dancing, ideally. It's a lot of fun. But the point of that, why am I telling you this? Because it's got a definition of sales in it. And my definition of sales is there's three things. It's making it easy for people to buy. Oh, shit. I can only ever remember two of them. Making the most of leads and making friends with people. That for me is what sales is. Essentially, if you're employed as a salesperson, oh no, is this in your book? Am I going to get done for plagiarism now?
I'm going to tell you what I put as a definition of selling.
Okay, cool. The thing is, if you are employed as a salesperson, That for me is your job. You're not employed to knock on doors. You're not employed to cold call. You're not employed to do all of that stuff. You're employed to make friends with people, make it easy for them to buy. Maybe let's say make it easy for them to buy the right thing. And what was the third thing? Make the most of leads. That's your job. What a great job that is, no?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've always defined selling as a transfer of emotion. And
Oh,
because the way I feel about this, because I love it and it's going to save your life, it's going to change everything, whether that's the religion, so you've got saviors, or whether it's politics because everything's going to be changed. When I feel passionate about something, it's my emotion that sways you into thinking the same way. So truly, selling is about a transfer of emotion so that the person's emotions change and then they choose to buy so that they can align with what they've just bought emotionally.
wow. That's powerful. And it's better than mine. It's annoying.
Sorry, mate.
So this is what I've wanted to say throughout this. For me, sales is always relationship. I
Yeah,
want to get my first sales manager on. I was telling you about that. He was amazing. We were selling advertising, so everyone had 5 or 6 options. Everyone had 5 or 6 advertising companies phoning them every day. We
yeah,
were selling because we were mates with these people. And I still do
yes,
it now with my customers. Like, my intention, if I've got an hour with a customer, is to spend 55 minutes talking about them and their lives and their holidays and their football team and all the rest. And the last 55 minutes saying, and we just need to get this stuff done. That for
yes,
me is what it's about. And if you're paid to make friends with people, that should be the best job in the world. And if your
yeah.
marketing department are doing their job, then it should be the easiest job in the world. Everyone be salespeople.
Well, here's the irony of that is, whilst most people hate the label, everybody sells.
Yes.
Because if you're a parent and your teenager's got a dirty bedroom, you have to find a way to convince them. And we soon learn that just bullying a teenager backfires. So we learn to coerce and persuade. You know, Persuasion is selling, although it's a different positioned language. But if you want your kid to do something, or your neighbour to do something, or you and your wife are having a discussion about holidays, and one person's got, why don't we go here? Bali, obviously I'd choose to go there. But that is a sales process. It's just that convincing you that you should think about Bali like I think about Bali. Let's both go there.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're always selling. It gets into a different position in the head when it starts to be about money, and
Yes.
then we get frightened.
Yes. And the way I'd like to be thought of as a salesperson is my mate Martin is the guy who helps me to get the very best deal on whatever it is that I'm selling. Do you know what I mean? That should
Yeah,
be the intention of the salesperson. So when I am at I don't know, cheese and wine, I can't shut up about the fact that I buy this stuff from Martin. Do you know what I mean? And you should buy it, this stuff from Martin. Like, whether you need it or not, if you ever need it, then you should buy it from Martin. And
yeah,
Martin, that's what I want to be in the world. I don't want to be
yeah,
like that snake Martin took me for another 200 quid. Who
yeah.
wants to be that? Do you know what I mean? Okay,
Well, then,
good. We have gone long.
sorry.
No, I love this, man. I love this so much. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the new question, which is, what should people read? You've suggested that there's books out there that will help people. What are those books?
I've always had timeless classics. So, how to win friends and influence people. Let's
Okay.
develop our own personal skill set. One of the really great books as a cornerstone for me was Anthony Robbins' Unlimited Power, or Awaken the Giant Within. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, again, a legendary book, but his next one, Principle Centered Leadership. Stephen Covey was great. I could flip the other way and let's have some really beautiful stories in which there's a great message. So Og Mandino wrote The Greatest Salesperson in the World. It's a lovely story. But he wrote 5 or 6 others, which are equally great. I've got, so many. The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. There's just so many great books out there. So sometimes I'll go for, and I would recommend a book that's specific about learning, and sometimes a book that's more about the message rather than exact how you should do it. There are some great books on sales and leadership and systems. There's a great book on here, the 80-20 principle, because that sort of applies to any business. Yeah,
situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Brilliant. I'll list all of those underneath so people will know where to go and buy them. Okay, good.
Under this one.
Oh, don't buy it. That's for dummies, isn't it, that one?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the last question then is, who do you think I should talk to? Who would I benefit from my minuscule audience, and who might benefit from having a conversation like this with me?
Well, I can think of. I've just had a good hour with a ski buddy. He runs a digital marketing agency, but we got on really well. So Steve from Push, I can share the details there. Another really respected guy I know, but don't know as well as I'd like. Really, he's made a brand for himself in the last 3 years. Daniel Disney does social selling, because the whole culture of social media and being a friend first, very much marketing led sales messages. I'll have a sift through my head and think, because as soon as we stop talking, I'll think of 3 others. Oh yeah, go and see them. But
okay, cool. Right, so here's what I'm actually going to ask you to do. The reason we're speaking is because Warren sent you that brilliant little message. So what I'm going to ask you to do is do something similar to that and then share it between us, because that really, really works. Yeah. I have had such a thoroughly good time, man. Thank you, Ben. This is really not the conversation I was expecting to have, but they so rarely are. Is the conversation you were expecting to have?
Well, I think, just touching on it quickly, the label of sales and selling has a preconceived negative connotation in most minds. I'm very, very proud to be a salesman. I'm bloody good at it. I can help your business be good at it. But not sales how you used to know it. Sales how it should be done, which is actually lovingly serving people. And suddenly people aren't expecting that.
Yeah. They're really not expecting that. And it's such a relief when they get it, I think. Yeah, I'm really so happy with this conversation. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I just could say it's not all about money, is it? Ever. Money doesn't make us happy. Let's have an adjustment in our values. And it's been a pleasure, mate. Really. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you so much. Okay, good. We'll do the pretend goodbye now, and then I'll stop the recording. Then we'll say goodbye like a normal human being.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much. I'll say goodbye.
Goodbye to you too.
Okay.